will tell you in the beginning, before we start, just for the ease of you getting the complete story today. We'll have a release for you later. Some of the evidence we are still processing. We're going to talk about a long list of arrests. The chief will detail some of those names, but we'll get you names and ages and all of that for people later. I understand you've had a chance to look at the evidence that's on display here as well. Good afternoon again. I am happy to be joined this afternoon by Lowell Police Superintendent Barry Goldner, Massachusetts State Police Major Brian Connors, who is the Deputy Commander of the Division of Investigative Services, DEA Special Agent in Charge Stephen Bello, Lowell City Manager Tom Golden, Detective Lieutenant William Donahue, Assistant District Attorneys Whitney Williams, Drew Arneson, and Graham Van Epps. We are today announcing the execution of a significant number of search warrants today as a result of a lengthy investigation. You can see displayed on the tables here some of the fruits of that work today, but I'm going to detail for you the process through which we came to today, the seizure of that evidence, and the arrest of a number of people. Beginning back in 2019, the Lowell Police Department, in collaboration with our office, began to investigate a drug dealing operation alleged to be operating in the city of Lowell. A group of individuals who self-titled the group as Cocaine Cowboys. Shortly after that investigation began, there were a number of controlled buys made from that group. As part of that investigation, other law enforcement agencies were brought into play, and there were buys made throughout the end of 2019 through 2020, 21, through the summer of 2022. The reason for that continuing execution of buys back and forth with that group was twofold. Number one, it was to find out where those drugs were coming from and where they were being kept in the city. Because the pieces that we were putting together made it clear that this was a very large-scale operation that was operating across the city. As a result of those buys that had been made, the information that had been gathered, and also information about the use of a variety of technology, including cell phones, to communicate the purchases and distributions of those drugs. On October 28th of this year, a Middlesex Superior Court Justice issued a wiretap warrant authorizing the interception of certain communications relating both to drug trafficking, distribution, and possession of firearms. That warrant went into effect on Halloween, October 31st of this year, and officers began intercepting communications regarding large purchases and distribution orders that were being placed. That information that was being gathered led them to gain information about the dispatching of runners to purchase drugs, the cutting and packaging for resale of those drugs, the coordination for the taking and filling of orders from customers. Allegations demonstrated that an individual named Arriaga held a leadership position in this enterprise and is allegedly responsible for the control of a variety of other folks who the chief will detail for you, who were in fact moving several kilos of cocaine per week across the city of Lowell. This was a sophisticated operation that was maximizing the profit to be made from the large supplies of drugs that were coming in by the way they were being cut, repackaged, and sold. And in addition, involved the possession by many of these people of a significant number of illegal firearms, putting many people in the community at risk as well. As part of the detail of who was operating the phones that were part of that wiretapping and detailing where the individual Arriaga was, we were able to gather information that during the period of time that this operation was ongoing, Mr. Arriaga was in fact in his home because he was on a house arrest bracelet as a result of a driving racing charges, motor vehicle racing charges out of Essex County. Today, as a result of the information that had been gained, there were a total of 32 search warrants that had been sought. Those search warrants were for businesses, actual residences, businesses, storage facilities, and bank accounts. All 32 of those warrants were executed today. We were also able to obtain arrest warrants for 21 individuals. 19 of those people have been arrested. In addition, during the course of the execution, 3 other individuals were found and arrested for various other warrants. So the total for today is 21 arrests, warrants still outstanding for 5 additional individuals. We have recovered 11 illegal firearms, in excess of 2 kilograms of cocaine, in excess of $100,000 in cash, over $60,000 of that cash, which was allegedly recovered from the home being occupied by Mr. Arriaga, a variety of ammunition, and significant amounts of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and Xanax. It is important for people to know that everyone standing before you here today as part of law enforcement in the city of Lowell is firm in our resolve that we are going to do everything in our power to remove from the streets of Lowell the illegal firearms as well as these significant amounts of controlled substances that are being trafficked. This is an impressive work done by these agencies. As I indicated at the beginning, this spans over a 3-year period of time. I think this gives a good indication of how you start by looking at who is selling on the street, being patient, working your way back to find out where all these drugs are coming from, who's controlling them, where they're getting them, and where they're storing them within the city. I want to be very clear that this investigation will continue. We do expect to take this in a number of other directions, and it is certainly expected that there may be additional charges. I'm going to turn it over to the chief at this point to talk a little bit about the specific individuals and the agencies involved. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Madam District Attorney. Good evening. First, I'd like to thank our city manager, Tom Golden, for all his support. He's here with us today. Our Mayor, Sakari Chow, and the entire Lowell City Council. I'd like to thank Captain Frank Nobrega of our Investigative Services Division, Lieutenant Steve Coyle, and Sergeant Dave Lally of our SIS Division, who headed this investigation, along with every member of our SIS Division. I'd also like to thank every member of the Lowell Police Department who assisted in this investigation. Our District Attorney, Marion Ryan, and all the Assistant District Attorneys who assisted in the investigation and were able to bring this to fruition today. The Massachusetts State Police assigned to the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office, Colonel Mason, the Massachusetts State Police, the Massachusetts State Police Gang Unit, the Violent Fugitive Apprehension Unit, the Massachusetts State Police Stop Team, the United States Drug Enforcement. We have ASAC Stephen Bello, John Greller from the FIT Unit, and over 100 drug enforcement agents that assisted in this today. Local law enforcement agencies in the Merrimack Valley, the Tingsboro Police Department, Chelmsford, Tewksbury, Methuen, and the Lawrence Police Department, the Kingston, New Hampshire Police Department, the Rockingham County Sheriff's Department, New Hampshire State Police, and the Polk County Sheriff's Department in Florida. We had 3 other SWAT teams that assisted in this investigation today, the NEMLEC, SEMLEC, and METROLEC SWAT teams, as well as the National Guard. As the District Attorney talked, this was a partnership and a culmination of an investigation over a long period of time that couldn't have happened without the partnership, the support from the city, and all members of law enforcement. Today, roughly 300 members of local, state, and federal law enforcement agents came together to make this come to fruition. We basically took out an organization that was distributing an estimated 5 kilos of cocaine on the streets of the Merrimack Valley each week. If you look at it, about 250 kilos a year on the streets of the city, as well as firearms, crack cocaine, fentanyl, pills, and marijuana. But we couldn't have done this without the partnership, again, of everyone involved, and I'd like to thank everyone for bringing this to fruition and making this come to conclusion today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Agent Bell.
Good afternoon. I am Stephen Bello, an Assistant Special Agent in charge with the Drug Enforcement Administration, New England Field Division, and I'm pleased to be here to join you all for today's announcement. Fentanyl is the most urgent drug threat facing our communities. More than 107,000 people died from a drug poisoning or overdose last year. 66% of those deaths were caused by fentanyl, and nearly 25,000 individuals died by ingesting cocaine. I think it's important to underscore that fentanyl is a highly addictive synthetic opioid, 50 times more potent than heroin. Fentanyl can be mixed with other drugs, like cocaine, or pressed into pills to resemble medication. This can lead to someone unknowingly ingesting fentanyl, which can cause a poisoning. Fentanyl pills have become more potent over the past year. DEA laboratory analysis shows that 6 out of every 10 fake pills contains a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. The sheer accessibility and availability of fentanyl makes the threat that much more dangerous. It's a scary truth that one pill can kill. The arrests detailed today highlight the serious problem we continue to face in Massachusetts and around New England. The individuals who have been arrested are believed to make up one of the top narcotics organizations in the area, accused of distributing large quantities of cocaine and fentanyl in Lowell and into southern New Hampshire. DEA New England is committed with our partners to investigating and dismantling poly drug trafficking organizations that operate throughout the region, and they bring crime and violence to our communities. No matter the threat, we are committed to protecting our communities. This investigation, conducted with the Lowell Police Department, Massachusetts State Police, and a host of other counterparts, demonstrates the strength of collaborative state, local, and federal partnerships. Along with our strong partnership with Middlesex County District Attorney's Office, we seek to bring justice to anyone who engages in these types of crimes. So we're very grateful to the District Attorney and to her office for their partnership and seeing this investigation to its extremely successful conclusion. Thank you.
I will take a few questions.
Can you talk a little more about that balance of investigating for 3 years to try to track down all these networks while these drugs are still being distributed and people are potentially dying in the process?
It is a balance because you have to obviously employ different kinds of opportunities to interact with these groups, using undercover investigations, using things like the wiretap to make your way up the chain to find out where the drugs are coming from. There were, during the course of that period of time, various individuals who were making on-street sale transactions who were arrested for those. But it is a balance because you are doing the person who's making a hand-to-hand sale on the street, but keeping an eye on what we really wanted to do. You heard the scope talked about by the chief. We wanted to shut down 250 kilos a year. So where are they getting what they're bringing in here, and where are they keeping it? As much as we want to move forward on some of those smaller sales, it takes a long time. And obviously, people who are engaging in these kinds of illegal activity have their antenna up, if you will, to find out when people are making sales of a certain size, buys of a certain size, when people are interacting. So you have to proceed cautiously, changing things up a bit as you go up the chain.
And how could this be disrupting networks in other towns nearby?
Well, obviously, as the special agent just mentioned, some of this we know was going to New Hampshire. You know, people were buying they had a lot of runners in this operation who were making sales to people who were obviously then selling to somebody else. So this work today, and this is a very impressive collaboration and a very painstaking work. This really disrupts a lot of the supply chains, if you will.
How many locations did you serve warrants to today, and what type of places were they?
We had 32 warrants. Some of them were for banks and other financial institutions for records. In excess of 10 were for cars. Some were for residents. Some were for storage facilities.
And just in terms of some historical perspective, in terms of drug busts in this area, where this ranks?
I would say this is a very significant, both in scope, in the scope of the group that was taken into custody today, the depth in terms of how far up we were able to go, the amount of product, and of particular significance, the 11 weapons that were taken off the street today.
Was the amount collected here, was this what was expected? Was this more than expected?
I think that we were, you never know exactly where you are in this cycle. And as I indicated, we aren't completely finished with the processing. This just happened this morning, so we've got a lot more. That's why we're talking about in excess of this, because we've got a lot that we haven't counted and added to the tally yet.
One more question. In other cases, the man in the body in the freezer. This was a question for.
Oh, in that case, yes.
Yeah. Is there going to be a third person who will face charges, and is he will be charged with murder charge?
We do anticipate there may be additional charges. We are waiting on the results of an autopsy by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner.
And are you looking for a third person who may have actually committed the crime that they allege?
I've seen that discussion as well. This investigation is ongoing, and in part will depend on some of the other information that we gather.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. Please feel free to take a look, take the pictures, and we'll get you additional detailed information. Thank you.
Thank you.